Pete Antonellis was a union man, a family man, and a man of the people. His life not only impacted his family, friends, and coworkers, he reached far beyond his circle to ensure people lived with dignity. Starting his work as a tool and die worker in the United Auto Workers Union, Pete realized the importance of unionism, education, social justice, and civil rights. After being elected as a union official on the first interracial ticket, Pete devoted his life to ensuring that workers were being treated fairly and their families were guaranteed affordable housing. Whether he shared his knowledge in his union, in colleges and universities, at the American Labor Museum, and among friends and family, Pete Antonellis knew how important it was to have a living wage, retirement plan, health care, and a place to call home.
He was the youngest of his siblings. There were 5 of them. They grew up during the Depression. He was the youngest, but during World War II, he was the only one of his brothers that was still home. His father passed away during 1945, and he had to start working full time to support his family, his mother, and his help with his sisters and everything. And he had seen a lot. My grandfather had gotten hurt working on the Lincoln Tunnel and walked with a limp for the later part of his life as a result of it. He had tough times at work. He was an immigrant, in an Italian neighborhood in New York City. They were poor. I guess it had a lot to do with the way he walked into it.
Pete Antonellis is not alone in his introduction to unionism.
My parents were both immigrants. They came here from Ireland, and they were very young when they came. They were actually late teenagers, and they were brought over by their siblings. And my mother worked as a domestic maid, and my father became a bus driver. And my father was very pro-union, and he was also very justice conscious because, as you can imagine, immigrants were basically discriminated against.
Early years working, I worked non-union jobs for about 5 or 6 years after high school. I didn't complete college, so I went to work after that. And Postal Service was always in the family. And I took the test and I waited, and I finally got in when I was 25 years old. And I knew that right away the salary was much better than anything I've ever earned. So my interest was immediately to join.
My father was a laborer. I mean, he worked so many really, dirty jobs, jobs that just, my poor dad, they didn't have a union. And so it wasn't the best in terms of fairness, wages, and things like that. And so, but he always knew. He knows, he's well versed in unions. And so when I decided that I was going to leave operator services and go outside to become a technician, he encouraged it 100%. And that was the first time that he really, really drove home the importance of unions.
I think in the Asian culture, especially, they are very low wage. Yeah. Even at this point, yeah, even now. The wage is very, very low. The working hour is very long. They also do not have regulation of like how many hours you can work. Like here we have 40 hours per week, right? Something like that. That was unheard of.
Once we arrived in the United States, my father worked in a knitting mill as a mechanic on the knitting machines. This was not a union shop. Since my father was an immigrant who spoke very little English, he was taken advantage of many times. He left and found a job in Pennsylvania. As my father advanced and took the knitting design from paper and programmed them into the machines, he was again taken advantage of. We came to Ridgefield, New Jersey, and what a difference. My father was exposed to a union shop. He was so excited when he would come home and tell us how different things were. He felt he had people who cared about him and his needs, and his concerns were addressed by the union. From that day on, we've believed in the union, and I've been a union member ever since.
My father was a Teamster member of the Bakers Union. My oldest brother was a PBA delegate with the New York City Police Department. And my brother, right older than me, he was at NYU as well, and he was a shop steward. So while I didn't realize at the time, I certainly learned later on that it was all within us, and apparently, and it is a calling that we've all kind of felt and embraced.
I'm from Bangladesh, and you probably know George Harrison's song, Bangladesh. In 1971, my father was very active in sensitizing people in our town through theater. He was a communicator. So I've seen that growing up. And when I was in the university, we were active, demanding democratic process where we had military rule. So I've been on the streets too. So there has been some history of being part of activism.
My father introduced me, got me the job at Department of Transportation. He was a union guy. He worked, he was under Local 195. And I came in, I was interested in what was going on in the union. So I went to the shop steward training class and then worked my way up as a vice president.
Being part of a union organization allows workers to stand together in solidarity and fight for improved working conditions.
The things that we had to do were keeping us from providing the best care for our patients. What I mean by that, we were doing secretarial work, we were cleaning the beds when patients were discharged, things that we could easily do, but it was not the best use of the time for a nurse. And so we went to management, and management said, if you don't like it here, leave. Every employee has the right to have a say in their wages, their hours, and their working conditions. And that's a very broad term, provided they elect it through unionization. And we said, that's what we're going to do. And we formed our own independent union. And then things happened after that. We had a strike every year until 1980. After that, we were taken seriously, and we were able to get good contracts. We've always been able to get good contracts. And we dealt with staffing, we dealt with shift rotation, we dealt with wages, we got good pensions, which were unheard of in healthcare. And so we were very successful.
I realized after a period of time that management was taking advantage of us and violating the, I didn't know a lot about the union contract, but I knew that certain things were wrong. And they were inhibiting the ability of people like myself to become a full-time regular, which means you'd get a bid job, you'd have a set hours, you'd have set days off, and you would be more able to plan your life. So I pursued the idea of merging. We had a bigger union local in New Haven, and they were soliciting membership mergers with the smaller offices around the satellite offices around the area. So with that solicitation, I got involved a little bit to say, yeah, we should vote, we should get in, because a bigger local is better than a small little powerless local that we had. The majority did eventually vote to go with the New Haven local, because the New Haven local fought for the rights that were being violated. Bosses doing craft work, bargaining unit work. We won a couple of grievances, and with those wins came conversion to full-time for two people, myself and another gentleman.
In addition to protecting their members, unions also highly regard education.
The UAW is really big even today, about educating its members and understanding more than just what happens on the shop floor.
I had to go to what we call plant school, and that was in Virginia. So I spent four and a half weeks at a training center in Virginia, where you had to get reacclimated or retrained on climbing telephone poles with the hooks, spike, we call it hooking the poles. But so we did that, and then they just gave you a basic overview, you were able to touch every portion of construction that you were going to be working, that you could possibly be working on in, the trucks, the big digger truck, to place and remove telephone poles, the big bucket trucks to place the fiber trucks to pull fiber on the reels, and, just everything. They just gave you a touch of it. You get opportunity. All the equipment is heavy. I was always like, oh no. But you got the opportunity to touch that. And then when you go back to your garage is when you start to learn each of those things. And I'm still new at it. But it's great. I love it. Union negotiation requires that the company pays for it. They want you to train. They want to send you there, so they pay.
We also do a regular conferencing on education, continuing education, teaching people about their pensions, teaching people about retirement funds, because you can't. It might not be the normal course of your professional career, but these are important things that you need to know.
Being a unionized member afforded us a contract, a collective bargaining agreement that gave us many rights and benefits of employment. And one of those was tuition benefit for being employed at NYU. And that gave us a certain amount of credits per semester to go to college if we wished and build on an academic career. And it gave me the ability to kind of remain grounded as a Teamster, but also become a labor attorney. And today I've been proudly nicknamed the Teamster with the law degree, something I take with great pride.
So as soon as you graduate high school, you can come fill out an application. If your application is accepted, then you go and take a written test. You're scored on that test. If you get in the higher percentile, then you're moved on to an interview, so that you're scored on the interview. So they take that score and the written test score, add those together, and the applicants in the highest percentile move on to the apprenticeship program. And then you are sent out to work as you go through the apprenticeship program. So you're not financially strapped. You do work as you go through the program. It's a member education, training, and labor studies program. It's for apprentices. I'm a mentor in that. I had mentored 5 apprentices. So as they're going through the program, we're there for them just to guide and direct them, make sure they have all their certifications, make sure they're doing what they're supposed to. If they have issues on the job, then we can help them, get through that.
Union contracts are agreements between labor and management in which benefits are guaranteed.
My father had health benefits and a defined benefit pension, and it gave him a meaningful retirement, and it gave him freedom and security, and they were all things that would have never been there without his union, and things we would have never had. People don't realize that today, and the kind of retirement plans we have now largely are not as secure as the ones that people got through their unions. He was sort of proof of a life well lived, if you will, and a struggle and making it worth it. And I hope that through programs like this, people see that it's really the way to go, to be an activist.
The unions people remind me, hey, Tracy, you can get this and that kind of benefit after you are full-time for 2 years. So really, I have spent time staying home with my newborn baby with the compensation.
I just needed a job that would pay me better wages. I was 22, I think around the time I had a 2-year-old single mother, and it was time for me to do something. So I went, took the test, got the interview. And it was at that time that I learned more about unions. It's not like I didn't know about unions, but that's when I learned that this was a union job. And then the benefits of that, of course, was that I was going to be starting at a better wage, right, than what I was already working at. And I was going to be getting a raise every 6 months until I reached top pay. And I was like, wow, and that's because of the union.
Benefits me in many ways. One, it gives me the ability to do what I love. Again, it's a calling to represent and look out for the benefits and the job security of all the members we represent, which is probably close to 3,000. It also benefits that I'm a member of this union, and it would count towards my pension. So I'm very close to receiving 30 years of a full pension, something I'm incredibly proud of. And most importantly, it just gives me the ability to kind of do what I love. It blended the role way back when I started at NYU till the moment today, representing many members, including those at NYU as well.
The fact that you can speak up and report conditions which are adverse to quality care or adverse to your particular personal safety, and you're protected. This is your right in a union hospital. Oftentimes in a non-union hospital, the nurses and other workers fear that they will be fired if they complain. And this is what I mean by, if you are unionized, you have an army of people, whether it's lawyers, whether it's union officers, to make sure that you are treated with respect and properly treated, and your rights are honored.
So what does the future hold for unions?
I mean, my father had this thing that I've heard all over, that management is the best organizer. There's some truth to that. There's a lot of truth to that. I think what we've seen for the past, 35 years or so, I think a new generation of people are understanding that you have to organize, you have to band together. And I think that's some of what we saw in the last few years. I think it's important for the labor movement to talk about its roots and where that came from. And it's also important to tap into it. So that's what I'm hopeful for going forward, is that, we get our story out there, because I think it's a story of working people, and it's the same story of people struggling and trying to make it all work.
Is what drew me to it. I felt like, okay, I'm not all by myself. I have a larger family that, has my back. And more people who think that way and get involved, the union would get stronger. Things get better, we will have better contracts that give better possibilities for workers. And I think it's only could go for better, because what does a business want? They want profit, right? So you have better, committed, happier workforce, you have better productivity, you have happier families, less mental health cases. So I can only hope that anyone who has power sees the possibilities of having happier workforce.
Today, it quoted, "We can win the 21st century," and I really do believe that we would be better as a nation, better as a workforce, and we can once again lead the world in those positive goals.
I see a great future, because healthcare workers in a union support national healthcare. We see it as the most efficient and the best way to deliver healthcare. And you will see them, unions in particular, unions that represent nurses, are spearheading the national healthcare reform. And that's so important. We are concentrating not only on the workplace, which is important, not only on our state level, but on the national level. And again, we are affiliated with the American Federation of Teachers, which is the largest union in the AFL-CIO. It's like 1.7 million people. So just by the sheer numbers means that we have greater impact. But there are many other unions who have the same goal. And I believe that we're going to get there. And I believe that the standards for healthcare will improve because of unions, in particular, healthcare unions.
When you can adequately support your family and you have access to healthcare because unions negotiated a good healthcare package, negotiated good wages, negotiated fair and equal pay, a fair day's pay for a fair day's work, okay? Then you have whole families, right? And if you have whole families, you have whole communities. and the growth that comes from that type of atmosphere or that type of way, it can't be anything but positive. You don't have people fighting and struggling, to just make it, because now there's a place for everybody and everyone can have access to the things that they need. So, and with great communities, you have a great world.
Pete Antonellis would have been so pleased to listen to the remarks made by these union members. When he started working as a teenager, he did not foresee the path he was about to take to improve the working conditions for so many union members. It starts with just one person, one conviction, and one idea to see what is and how it can be improved. The courage and fortitude of Brother Pete lives within us all. It is up to us to leave them dormant or to step forward and implement change. Solidarity forever, for the union makes us strong.